Welcome all to my paranormal closet, where the stories and magic take place. Today's guest is a psychic medium who helps others integrate spirituality into their everyday life through psychic development classes, readings, and psychic life coaching. He's an experienced paranormal investigator who, like me, loves to combine his love of history and psychic abilities to open up the world of ghosts, hauntings, and other paranormal realms. To top it off, he's an author as well. Join me in welcoming William Becker to the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's good to be here.
You have quite the resume. In the footsteps of forebears, your book. I see that it's not paranormal in nature. Tell me about it.
Well, it is and it isn't. It's more of the psychic mediumship work I do, which is part of what I love. But my grandparents left Russia in 1912. We're Germans. We're not Russians. We were Catherine the Great's Germans sent to colonize the Volga German area, the lower Volga and such. That was occupied by a few nomadic tribes that used to like to raid, pillage and burn and all that kind of fun stuff. And so Grandma and Grandpa were going to go back to Russia after the Tsar had everything back under control. Well, we know how that worked. So they stayed, and I'm here as a result of that. But there were a series of tours by some of the Volga German associations and Russian Germans from Russia organizations. So some of my cousins and I took one, and we wound up in my grandparents' village as well. And so what this book is tracing some of the different villages. My photography mostly. A couple of them I'm in, so somebody else held my camera for me. And the history, summations of history and such, and then my readings of the location and the history and what I could see from the people, both the pleasant times and the not so pleasant times. There was a very real genocide against the Germans that started in 1915 and went to 1945. And much of my family didn't survive that.
And this is the kind of history that should be taught throughout. There's so much in history that is lost and not taught. It's almost like it's hand selected what they want to teach, and they leave out genocide of a lot of different peoples that no one is even aware of. It's really sad.
It's only been the last several years that Russia would even talk about us. The Soviet Union pretty much denied we'd existed. Our cemeteries were desecrated, and they had stones demolished, taken away, and all the rest of it too, just like we didn't exist. But I agree, and it's not just sub-Saharan Africa. It's not just past abuses in this country. It's not. It's something that's happened
worldwide, and it goes back centuries.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that you wrote about it. I think that's really important to bring to the forefront.
Thank you. And some of it is what I can do as a medium is pick up more on some of the individual horrors of the families. And like my grandmother had made a map, so we knew right where the houses of her family were. And her family.
I imagine that must have been really exciting for you to go there, but heart-wrenching too, because of your abilities to feel that pain. Oh, I can't even imagine.
That's a little of both, because I'm not a real empath. So I watch, I see, and I take in, but I don't get overwhelmed by these things.
Okay, then you're lucky, because I'm empathic, and I would cry, and I could never do certain things because I wouldn't be able to handle it. It would just be too much for me.
Right. Well, there are ways of learning.
Oh, I think we've frozen up a little bit, so let's just give it a minute. It says our connection was lost. I don't know if you see me.
I see you.
All right. Okay, you're back. If I go
Okay.
like this, then you know I've lost you for something.
Okay.
I live in
Good.
the
Good.
mountains, and for some reason, my connection I lose it sometimes. So I'm glad you're there. Okay.
Okay. That's good to know. Thank you. Yes, but there are ways to help work with that. I've worked with people to help control how much they let in at a time, so you can have enough to function appropriately with the people around you, but not get overwhelmed at Costco or
Mm,
at Auschwitz or some of these other places. And so
yes. Yeah.
we we can talk. Um,
I would
it
like
takes
that. Well,
practice.
I'm going to I want to discuss that too in today's program because I feel like the classes that you offer are very valuable and I want the listeners to be aware of that. But I still wanted to just finish talking about your book because I'm very intrigued. I mean, we're very similar because I do write books, but I write about true account hauntings. I don't know if you know
Okay.
that. And I write about the true account hauntings in my community where I live now. And like you, I want to talk about the history. I want to tell the reader about the history of the town and the location, if I'm able,
Hmm.
because I feel it's really important that they know about that history because then they can relate to the haunting much better. So, and then I love the photographs. I'm all about the photographs when I can put them in there. So I think that's a great thing to have in a book such as yours because it really gives the reader a visual on what you're talking about and what was a reality and where it was. It just puts you right there.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. And you're absolutely right. There is no haunting or paranormal without history, and you don't have
Right.
history without the paranormal. I hate that word actually because it's pretty normal to me. And through much of human history, it was normal. In 14th century England, the paranormal was pretty just part of life. Um,
But
it's changed.
isn't that like a lot of things these days? If
Hmm.
somebody doesn't like the way it's presented, they'll just turn it around and change it into something different and it becomes abnormal and you have to be afraid of even discussing it. So
Hmm.
I get what you're saying. It was very normal and it was feared for a long time because of those changes. And I think now society is really opening up more about spirituality and paranormal, and I'm thrilled about that.
Yes, I am too. And I have my concerns about the way it's done sometimes.
Sure.
And I'm not here to bash or anything. I'm just saying people need to use their critical thinking and analytical skills, and sometimes we don't. Um,
Right.
me
Oh, I
too.
agree.
It's a human trait, um, and that's all. But yes, and with this book, um, I got to watch my grandmother's parents kind of going, why us? Opening and closing the same drawers, trying to figure out why they were being moved or persecuted or whatever. And
I
things,
don't think there's any answer for that, unfortunately.
no,
I don't think there's any answer for that. I mean, it's unfortunate and happens to people. I'm from Austrian descent, and my
okay,
parents emigrated to this country, and they moved. They were in the city in Manhattan for a while as supers, and then they decided to buy a home in the Bronx in a little area called Throgs Neck, and they moved into an area that was primarily Italian and Irish. And
whoops,
the block that we lived on was 90% Italian. And there was like this one man who was the mafia of the neighborhood.
mhm,
And we unfortunately lived right next to him. And he was horrible to my parents. And he was like he controlled the neighborhood. And it was as if everybody just we were the ones that were persecuted, put it that way,
right,
from children on up to the adults. It was the most awful thing. And it got better as the years went on. And when he finally passed away, it stopped.
hmm,
But that was my entire life. And that's all I remember. And I kept on saying, why? Why us? And you
right.
do ask that question, and there really is no answer for it. Maybe power, control, I don't know. But it's a horrible thing.
It is, and good psychology classes can explain a lot of it, but um, it's it doesn't matter because it does horrific damage to people. We could have a whole nother
Absolutely.
program about that and choosing our incarnations into the situations to learn the lessons and why do we wind up in these situations and all that. But that's a little different. I did get a couple. I think the most satisfying things out of the Russia trip were one, seeing my family's homes and reading them
Yeah.
and such, but also at my grandfather's father's house. Grandpa had the true wicked stepmother,
Oh,
and
really?
yes, and she came flying out of the upstairs part of the house, kind of like the scene in Fiddler on the Roof when the butcher's dead wife comes to,
Uh-huh.
in Tevia's dream to,
No kidding.
and because she knew I knew all the stories about her. And
Right.
so I got to tell her off good. And
Oh, good for you.
and then in the school that Grandma would have finished going to, um, I met Grandma on the stairs and we had a nice conversation. And one of the things that really stuck with me was that she said, "Imagine how broken and unhappy that woman had to have been to be that way."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
It
something
makes
we
you
need to
think, it makes you
consider.
see a whole other side and get a
Mhm.
totally different perspective on it, and maybe even feel a little compassion
Right.
for her. Yeah.
And not make excuses or
No, I
say,
understand.
because a lot of people have gone through that, but understanding. And that's not something ever Grandma ever said while she was alive.
Mhm.
She had nothing but disdain for that woman who had tried to make Grandma miscarry. I mean, she was horrible. Um,
Oh,
I
really?
mean, yeah, because they moved in with his parents after they were married, and they were come here and then go back because the families were rich. They didn't. Mostly it was land and animals, although Grandma's grandfather had good hold hard cash. But um, they were going to increase their ability to expand their holdings and get the political situation back under control and move back. And so,
Mm.
all this was kind of a temporary move for a while, but it was, yeah, it was interesting. But I love it. I've got a few others similar, only not involved in family in the
Mhm.
works, but it's going to be a while
Oh,
because I'm a slow
wonderful.
writer. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and finding the time. It's you try to keep yourself on schedule. Like I was really looking forward to this past weekend to really get that time to write a little bit because I've been focusing mostly on getting my episodes together for both the
Hmm.
shows. And I came down with a stomach bug. So the whole weekend was shot. I was down for the count. It was really awful.
Oh, no.
So, yeah. So the whole weekend was shot. So now I'm back to where I was before, getting the show together. And I have a script to write for Thursday. And then I'm like, all right, when am I going to squeeze in a chapter for the new book that I was hoping to get out by May, which probably won't happen now. So life
Yeah.
gets in the way. I can't wait to retire when I can really focus more on doing this full time. So I got 2
Right.
years left till I
Oh,
do that, but
congratulations. And I
thank you.
basically um I started doing this as a profession just before my parents got so ill that I had to move in, and it was pretty much impossible for me to do um the regular office job. So um I don't know, when did I start?
You
It's
were
probably
probably
been
just
about 12 years.
you were meant you were meant to do it this way. That's we are led to do
Yeah.
these things. I could see spirit ever since I was a kid. I'm not as gifted nearly as you or other people that I work with, but I knew I could see spirit. And
Hmm.
then I had premonitions when I was a kid and it frightened me. And then one that was just awful came true. So at
Ooh,
the age of around 12, I shut down and I just was
right.
like, that was it. And although I still had this fascination with the paranormal and ghosts and all that, I wanted like really nothing to do with any kind of gift.
Hmm.
And then, but here and there, I just kept learning tidbits. And it wasn't until I was 30, when the day my dad died, I was on the GW bridge rushing to be at his bedside when he came to me and told me he was gone.
Right.
And that was like this aha moment, like, oh my goodness. It was almost as if he was saying, hey, I'm here, I'm okay, I'm not ill anymore, and get up off your ass and do something with your gift.
Hmm.
And that was probably like the beginning of it for me, that I just really started to pick and learn things. And I've
Oh,
been a
good.
writer since the 7th grade. So I thought, well, maybe they go together and
Right.
let the universe guide me. And that's how it happened. I mean, I wrote my first psychological thriller, which is what I was always interested in, even though I went to school to write for children. But it's those true ghost hauntings that have taken off, and that's where I found I've been led. So you learn, some people learn it later, and it's meant to be that way, I guess. But
Yeah,
you learn where you're meant to be.
exactly. And I saw my first ghost when I was 8 or 9. It was another little boy, and I thought, oh, okay, no big deal. And I started working actively on developing the psychic and mediumship abilities when my late teens. So it's not like I'm
Oh,
new to the
okay.
field. I just didn't go
Right.
professional until later. But I've been working on
Mm-hmm.
this for 8 years, 49 years, close to 50 years, as far as the
Wow.
psychic abilities go. And then the
Mm-hmm.
ghost stuff even longer because I'm old. Um, but but it's nice. It matures. It gets better, and that's one of the things. For any of this kind of work, it takes time. It takes maturing in your practice and your understanding. It takes getting to know people and having people skills. Um, you've got to, I mean, honesty, directness, all that is so important. The kindness is part of it. Um, I do gallery readings. I've got one coming up next month. And not everything needs to be blurted out in front of 100 people. Um, and so I give people the chance to meet me backstage, and I'll try to remember and I'll try to reconnect. I can't guarantee that's going to happen. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but to do that instead of saying it all up front, if once we've established that, yeah, and they know I know what I'm talking about
Right.
and how far they want this to
Then
go.
it kind of flows. Well, let's discuss your paranormal side. You teach these psychic development classes and you give the readings like you just mentioned and
Mhm.
psychic life coaching. What are the psychic development classes? What do they involve? I know you just started to speak a little bit about them, but what does it involve?
It depends a little bit on the class. Now, I have a regular monthly class I teach in Oregon City at a haunted coffee shop. If you're going to
Oh,
teach people,
cool.
well, if you're going to teach people how to talk to ghosts, you got to have ghosts to talk to. And
That's
this
right.
shop, people forget that, um, especially a town like Oregon City, which is the oldest incorporated city west of the Mississippi River, and was the territorial capital for what is now Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and western Montana and western Wyoming. We were the big kids on the block. San Francisco's charter is here, um, because the we were the power structure, the recognized government of from the United States. And um, so a lot of these places had houses and other things and beforehand, compared to New York or New England. We have very little history. I say history because Native American didn't have written histories, so technically it would be prehistoric. But um, as far as the European settlers go back, we're new kids on the block. I get that, but doesn't mean we don't have lots of ghosts. And
Sure.
and these classes, it depends on who's there. We work on grounding, we work on shielding and filtering, and it's a filter and a shield combination that can help you with empath, blocking, tuning down how much you get of other people's emotions. We work with, depending on what it is, with some of my more specialized workshops, we go from working with how do you feel, how do you find the entities that are in the room, and then helping people to make the contact. How do you make connection? What's it like
Well,
working with
that's true
others?
because everybody receives that message differently. I know from my paranormal group, the team, everybody gets
Hmm.
it differently. And personally, I call it my foofy feeling. When I get into a building and I walk around, I get this foofy feeling. It's almost
Hmm.
like I'm drunk even. I feel like I'm drunk and I'm off center. And if it's bad, I get the feeling it's bad. If it's good, I get the feeling it's good. So
Right.
that's for me. But everybody receives it differently. So I guess you got to kind of like tune into that person's vibe to help them understand it better and maybe control it or recognize it or
Right. Recognize, but then go from, oh, okay, now I recognize there's something here. Let's learn how to communicate with it. Let's learn how to get a better understanding of who or what it is. And sometimes that means they can see it through the third eye. Sometimes it's just knowing. Um, I've a lot of times clients I work with, students, at the beginning they'll know something, and they'll know it's the brown-haired little girl with the yellow dress and sparkly blue eyes, just like I'm seeing, but they won't see her, they'll know it. But then over time, as they work on their skills and develop their abilities, they'll know it, they'll see it, they'll hear it. I mean, all the pieces start coming together.
are
Um,
you of the belief that has the ability, they just need to be able to tap into it?
yes, I think it's part of our DNA going back millennia. I mean, we've only had language. I have a bachelor's degree in history, so I've been a history fanatic all my life. And the ancient world is what really gets me, you know, gets me going. And I think the best that we can figure language is maybe 30,000, 50,000 years old, give or take. We don't know for sure when
Hmm.
humans started having an actual language to communicate. But that's one of the thoughts that I've read more recently. And I stay away from conspiracy stuff. I don't want junk science. I want real science. Um, and by people that are recognized and well trained and all the rest of it. But um, and that didn't come out right. I don't quite mean that the way it sounded. But anyway, um, I think it helped keep us from being eaten by saber-toothed tigers and getting hit on the head by fellow early humans, and to connect and communicate with our own clans, our own little communities. Um, I can't prove it, but that's makes sense to me, both as something I pick up as a medium, and I don't ever call myself a historian, but somebody with a, a big interest in history. So, um, yeah.
And how do you feel about the gadgets and things that people use when they paranormal investigate to help them connect with spirits, such as I know a lot of people use the Ouija board. I'm uncomfortable using that, but I do use a dowsing rod and a pendulum to help me connect.
Hmm.
Um, Although people would liken the dowsing rod and the pendulum to the Ouija board anyway, so it's kind of like, all right, but we do bring more traditional methods in my particular investigative group as opposed to some other
Hmm.
groups that use some like extraordinarily intricate gadgets in their investigations. What is your take on all that?
Uh, for me personally, I like to talk to people. And so I like to go in just as I am and see who wants to talk to me and communicate. And I'll often have a video or something going to at least record my part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because often the entities have told me, why should we go to all that work when I've asked them to show up on the film or the camera or in the video when you can see
Mm-hmm.
us and hear us? And it's like, yeah, but I can't prove it if you
True.
don't show up here. Um,
Right.
and so,
It's true.
yeah, so I like to do that. I don't use, um, I have a friend who's a very gifted tarot card reader, but she studied with some real experts for a very long time. Um, I My problem with things like pendulums and dowsing rods is it's so easy for our subconscious to move them without knowing it.
I'll let you know when you come back to me. You probably can still hear me.
I can.
Okay, so the last thing I heard was my problem with pendulums and dowsing rods, and that's the last thing I heard.
Okay. Is that it's so easy to subconsciously move them ourselves. It takes very little just movement of the hand to make something happen. Now, if you could put them in some kind of a lock position where you're not holding them and they're not angled at all or tilted, and put
Mm-hmm.
them down someplace, or the pendulum, um,
I hang it on a rack. I have like a rack, and I hang
right,
it on the rack.
right, and then you know you don't a little you don't consider a little bit of movement from a little light breeze that we don't even feel, but something bigger, then I think that have a lot of merit to them. And I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
the other doesn't. It's just that it's so easy for us to make them work the way we want them to without even
Mm-hmm.
knowing we're doing it. And
Well,
I don't
some people would say, I totally get what you're talking about, how we can make them move, but some people would say that the spirit goes within the individual and is making it move.
and that's possible too. I think there's so many uncertainties with it that it's
Mm-hmm.
difficult to know. Now I know people. I have a friend who's an archaeologist who's used them in digs quite successfully, and with his
Oh yeah.
students. Yeah, and so not in
Wow.
a metaphysical way, but the other way. I know there's something there when used correctly. I just
True.
don't.
And then if you I feel like if you're on a roll, if you're asking questions and you're getting definitive answers to your questions, it's kind of hard to negate what you're
Exactly.
experiencing. It's very easy for you to say, oh, that was something, and then if nothing else happens, then it really was nothing. But if
Right.
you continue on and you're actually getting responses and answers to whatever it is you're trying to unfold, then I feel that you can accept it as truth and something.
Especially if you can validate it after the fact. So you don't know
Correct.
what
That
the
makes it even, oh, that makes it even
right,
better.
right, because our minds go in different weird ways. I've known people who have gotten who people I trust who aren't faking anything, who have gotten some fascinating information from a Ouija board that was later verified. They didn't know at the time. I also have taken or participated in some remote viewing experiments and
Mm-hmm.
working with things. And I watched somebody in one of these cheat on a Ouija board session where she was the one pushing it and making it go all
Mm,
over. And then I later found out, I wrote it up in my report, and I
mm-hmm.
found out that that was exactly what was going on at the session.
Which is where the history comes in, where you were saying if you can actually prove or disprove something. I just interviewed somebody in my last show, Chris Whitehouse from White House investigative team in the UK, and he
Uh,
had said, he says, I'm not really out to prove anything to anybody. I'm not out to convince anybody that what we go through actually happens.
mhm.
It's really, if I know it's happened, then it's happened. He says, but we do record everything, and we do have a live audience that watches it, and they put comments in as things are going along. And they were at this investigation, and a little girl came through, and she was looking for her shoe, and she said it was a red shoe, and it's in the stream and I can't get it out. And comments were coming in, and I guess one of the viewers went, oh my goodness, the red shoe murder. And this is how they unraveled the truth of whatever it was they were unfolding. They had no clue that this had ever happened, but there was a little girl who was actually murdered and lost her red shoe in the stream. And he said it was the most amazing thing that this unfolded for them, because it was totally out of the blue, unprepared for it. that they found out that this little girl was murdered by her father's lover. Of course, back in the day, in like the 50s, that was frowned upon, and he was a married man, and he was having this affair with a man, and she saw her dad and him kissing, and the fact that she was caught was why she was murdered. But I
Right.
thought it was just very cool that this history of this murder helped them to solve this visitation that they had from this little girl.
Oh, that's fascinating. And
Isn't it?
yeah, and that poor little girl, but it brings up so many of the injustices of our modern history.
Yeah.
Um, and anyway, I'm not kidding. I don't do politics on paranormal shows. Um, that's not what they're for. But it's it's fascinating. And the guy, I mean, I agree with the stance. People, I don't expect people to believe what I say because I say so. I'm
Right.
highly skeptical. I believe in what I see or what I'm talking about because of direct physical occurrences over and over again that have verified, yes, these creatures exist, or yes, I am a very good medium, or the different things I've had, um, the experiences to back it all up. And that's important. But it also means somebody I don't know doesn't have to believe me.
Right.
Because if they haven't seen it or don't know me, but maybe they'll think about it. Um,
Right. And you're
and
sharing the experience, and they're listening, and I don't know, getting whatever it is they get out of it. But I mean,
exactly.
I'm not out to prove anything to anybody either. I'm just sharing my experiences and hoping that it gets the word out about the paranormal and makes them think. Plant that seed, I guess, is the best way to say
Right.
it.
And take away some of the fear. Because I've met some beings that aren't very nice, and I've met some that try to scare you because they want to be left alone. But I haven't met anything evil. Um, and certainly not pure evil. I haven't met anything pure good either. I haven't met anything trapped. Um, and so I try to help people be a little bit more open minded what's around and be a little less afraid. And often in a house or a building or some kind of a situation, you can set ground rules. I've
Mm-hmm.
worked with people several times where they've wanted the entity gone. And after I've talked to them about it and who it is or what it is, and we've chatted a bit, they're happy to let it stay with a few ground rules
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
fear is
And
gone.
that's right. That's one of our mission statements too in our group.
Mhm.
The first thing is we're there for the spirits. We're there to get their message and receive their message and try and understand what it is that they want to say. And that the second
Mhm.
thing is if they don't want to move on and these people are living in their space,
Right.
finding that connection that they could live together
Mhm.
amicably. Same thing.
Right. Exactly. And I've watched a lot of quote experts supposedly clear spaces, and I've watched the entities laugh at them. Or or every case I've heard of, within a week they're all back again and they're not happy. Um
Worse for
and
the wear.
yeah, exactly. And so I have my doubts about things working. And again, I just don't think anybody's stuck or trapped. Some people make a choice to stay. I think a lot of them visit back and forth. And a
Sure.
lot of times what we have is I think we leave a part of our personality, our intellect can be intelligent, it can interact with us, but it's really not the soul or the spirit. It's gone in what's needed to be done. It's part of that person's reality from when they were here. And sometimes you can get a difference. Well, I'll use my dad as an example. I get confused sometimes because I feel like I get two different messages from him. And I realized, okay, one is coming from the personality he left in this house. Nobody died in this house. They had it built, and they both died in hospitals or facilities or whatever. Um, but it's that and when I connect with him, with truly on the other side, the full self, it's a very different perspective because he's learned more. His
Mm.
spirit, his soul have
Has
learned and
grown some.
healed. Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think a huge part of what we experience, let me rephrase it, what I experience are the entities that they leave that piece of um, their intellect and personality,
The entities that leave that piece of.
their intellect and personality. And I think, where was I going with that? Excuse me, I am more than a little bit ADHD. But it's, again, we can't prove it, but I don't think things fit in nice little boxes. And I use the word entity because I don't like to put a definition that's very defining on anything. I like beings to tell me who they are or what they want to be called instead of um, creating an image around them that they may not appreciate. Um,
Mm.
and it's like with the others, the Fae or something too. I don't try to name them based on mythology or superstition. It's, you tell me who you are, and that's what I'll call you. Um, and the key, lots of respect. Like you said,
And so
it's their place.
you've been able to get their names and verify who they were as
I've got,
well.
I've got with the Fae, I've gotten not their personal names from them, but I've had several times that tell me what they are. I've had a couple tell me that they're sprites, or some that are brownies, or things like that. Um, in North America, we have pukwudgies or pudgewuckies. I always get the middle of it mixed up. Um, and most of the Native American tribes speak about them. Some of them consider them just purely nasty, horrible beings. Some of them say if they like you, they're fine, and if they don't like you, watch out.
Would
Um,
they be considered like elementals?
I consider them to be that way because I think they're
Hmm.
in and out. All of the beings that I'm aware of are interdimensional, basically. They're in and out of our 3D realm. And that's part of why we can see them sometimes and not other times, and why we
Mm.
can sense them sometimes and not other times. But when we sense them, not necessarily see them. And I have physically seen, at least a half a dozen, maybe more,
No kidding.
of different kinds with
Wow.
my two eyes. I
Mm.
otherwise I would say this is what I'm picking up, but I don't know if it's true. I mean, I don't know
Right.
if they're real, but when I've seen them with my physical eye, um, and you don't have to be in Ireland or the uh, the Isles of Great Britain to see them. Um,
Mm.
I've seen them around here in forest. In fact, one of the ones I saw was about in a park about 2 miles from my house. In the middle of the day, it was starting to materialize between two trees, kind of like on Star Trek with the whatever that machine is that they send you back and forth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you think that they come out because they know you can see them? That, oh, that guy, I know he can see me. Let me present myself to him and get his attention kind of thing?
Sometimes that's true. Like the case with this, which was a dwarf type creature, I don't think he knew I was there because when he saw me, he started fading away again. It's
Mm.
like he didn't come, he was coming through whatever this veil or portal or whatever it is you want to call it. And it's like, oh, there's somebody here. And he went back. So it's a little bit of both, depending on the being. Um, but I know that some of them have wanted me to see them.
Mm.
So
Interesting. So getting back to your psychic development classes, we totally went off track there.
sorry about that. Oh,
No, it's great. I love it. I find it so interesting.
thank you. But some of the basic class we work on just developing more and more the ability to talk to basically the human entities that are around, and how to recognize from just yourself when there's something there without having to use a meter or something else. I think our bodies are better um, machines about that anyway. But I also do more advanced classes where I will help people go to other realms where some of these other beings live, and to also help them see them here. At least be aware of them. If they're not seeing them physically, at least being more aware of them and starting to have a communication or a contact with them.
Hmm.
Um, and I've also worked with them sometimes with astral projection, astral travel,
Oh, I was just
or
going to
remote.
ask you that. That is so
Yeah.
funny. You read my mind. That's what it was. I was just getting ready to ask you about that. That is
Great.
so funny.
And remote work, things like that after people have done
Hmm.
this for a while. And I like people who have been around for a while to do that. So they have a little bit more sense of responsibility and care and all the rest of it. And we go through some ideas about helping to remain safe. I don't
Yeah,
think
because from what I understand, that astral projecting can be quite scary as you go through the levels. Like when you first go there, it's almost like they don't want you there, and you kind of get like, I don't want to say attacked, but you meet with beings that don't really want you there. And then I guess once you are not afraid of them and they see that they're not affecting you, you can move further in. Now I've astral projected myself, but it wasn't intentional. It was in my sleep. It may
right,
have happened more often than I realized, but I when it has happened to me, I've been thrilled. And it's only been to the extent that I've gone up through the roof of my house and I'm in the sky and I can feel the breeze and I see the stars and I look down and there's my house and I'm like, wow, this is cool. And then I
right.
can't remember anything else and I can't remember what happened after that. And
Hmm.
it's happened that way every time. And I almost wish I could find out more, but don't know how. And I'm a little bit afraid too. So,
Right.
and after I interviewed a gentleman, Vince Field, who deals in astral projection, and listening to him terrified me even more. It was like, shit, I don't know if I want to do that now, like, so there's
and
a
I
part
have
of me that does, and there's a part of me that doesn't.
and I haven't had any issues with it. I do remote viewing, remote work more often than astro, but they're kind of similar because you're removing part of yourself and going someplace. Although a
Mm-hmm.
lot of what I do with the remote viewing is I just say I'm lazy. I bring it to me instead.
Oh, okay.
um, it's just another way of doing it. But it works, and there's knowing that you're safe is a big part because you're right. If there's something out there trying to intimidate you, and they figure out that that they can't hurt you, and we're not intimidated, it's like, oh, okay, and they go away, or they get
Mm-hmm.
nice. They can be like a bully. You stand up for yourself, and all of a sudden they're your best friend. Um, but usually with that, I start out by taking people to meet their guide at the Akashic Record, and then working with that guide to help choose where and how to go.
You mean you find the person's guide?
Help them find their guide. I don't tell them.
Wow.
I don't tell them. I take them on a guided meditation, usually to find it themselves
You
and
give
find
you give them the tools to discover who the guide is. You give them the
right,
tools to discover who their guide is. Is that how I'm understanding it?
right. And I take them on a journey to help do that. And it's the Akashic Record Guide. It's different than a spirit guide, although I take them on journeys for that as well. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
the Akashic Record Guide then I use because that's what I do when I want to go visit other realms. Um, and it's someplace I haven't been before or it's new to me. I'll check with Robert. He's my guide at the record, and verify that this is an okay place for me to go, just because it's important. And some of the realms we can have, soul contacts with anyway, and so it's a different feel. But I don't do it, as we're talking about it, I don't do enough. I get caught up in so much day-to-day stuff that I forget to go to the places that I really like to go.
How many realms do you think there are?
I don't know. I have no idea.
They're freezing up again. How many realms do you think there really are?
I don't know.
Mm.
I don't think we'll ever know, or any human being will. I think we're given the ones that we're allowed or interested in, and who knows how many others there are. But
Mm.
with
So how does the psychic life coaching, how does that fit into the whole gamut?
well, a lot of what that includes is past life work. And I'm not a hypnotist. I don't do regressions. I do readings. And the past lives that are relevant are usually the ones that I see. And we work with those as part of the integration. A lot of times they help explain fears, likes, dislikes, working with the calling, what is our purpose on earth, and then
Mm-hmm.
also the people around somebody, ancestors, people that have died, or loved ones, or sometimes they're
Deceased loved
people they
ones that
never
have
knew.
passed on.
Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's even people they haven't known. But what are the messages and what are the things that they are encouraging this person to do or not do?
And how do you connect to that? Are you like one of those people like we've seen on television that goes up to a person and says, taps them on the shoulder and says, you have somebody standing around you. Can I talk to you because I'm a medium and I see this person, and the person's usually like, okay. And there you go, explaining who this person is and what their message is. Is that how you see it, or is there some other way that you do that?
I usually see the person around the other person and the
Hmm.
message and that kind of thing. I don't go up to strangers and tap them on the shoulder. I think it's rude. I know a lot of people say that's how you're
I
supposed
always wanted somebody to tap me on the shoulder and come up to me and say, "Hey, I see somebody." Seriously,
and
I wouldn't think it's rude at all.
I just, I mean, if it was somebody, it depends on who it is for me
Mm.
personally. But there's kind of an ethic about you don't read people unless you have permission.
They give you permission.
They give you permission, but at the same time, it just can be kind of shocking. And I mean, for some people it works, and some people it doesn't.
Right. It depends on the person's personality. I'm one of those people. You can read me anytime.
Mhm.
I have no problem. You read me,
Yeah,
but
and
that's me. Not everybody feels that way, so I get it.
I'm pretty much the same way as you are with that.
Mm.
But um, I don't like to intrude onto the others that way.
Because sometimes it might be a really important message that that person really needs to hear, and if you that moment is lost, then it's lost forever.
Well, I
So
tell them, actually, I'm not paying attention when I'm at the grocery store. I'm looking at what I want to buy and
what I'm
dealing
there to
with,
buy.
yeah.
So
And so,
you've been able to shut it out and only open up to it when you need to.
yeah, or when it's really strong around me. Um, Shoot, sitting in my own house, half the time I have other people tell me what's going on simply because I'm doing something else. And
Right.
okay, yeah, those footsteps are loud enough. I hear them. Okay, yeah, I know you're here. Thanks. Or like in bed last night,
You were just mentioning about and I find this very intriguing because I've never heard of it before. You just mentioned that you do readings and the past lives that are important come through. I've never heard that before. That is so interesting because it is a form of past life regression in a way, as opposed to hypnosis, because I have gone through past life regression. It was the very
Hmm.
first time I ever did it. And you almost get this feeling like, did anything really happen? But there are things that had happened that were kind of undeniable. Like
Hmm.
I went in there with these past lives that I believe that I've lived, the certain connections that I had. And so I have a strong connection to the Victorian era. I'm all about it. I feel like I've been there, done that, and loved it. And
Twice.
twice. Thank
One
you.
male,
And
one
then
female.
really, thank you. And I also have a connection to the Titanic. I don't know why, but other than the fact that my grandma was almost on the Titanic, but stayed behind because her triplets were very ill and she would have been below deck and would have perished, and my dad would never be alive and I wouldn't be here. That's the only thing. But I just feel like there was some other connection to the Titanic. I remember going to see that movie and being devastated for months. Months. That's how much it affected me. But that's the empathic side of me as well. So it kind of was a little confusing. But I also had a dream, a very vivid dream of somewhere in like the 40s or the 50s. So I went in there hoping to learn about those, and all of a sudden these other ones came up. And was I making it up in my head, or did it actually happen? See, you wonder. You come out of there
Right.
thinking, because I saw faces, and they're still vivid in my mind from that regression. And
Hmm.
were they past lives of mine or not? You know what I mean?
Right. Right. I've had very little regression work done on me. Some with somebody, but I don't know. I'm not aware enough how good of a hypnotist she is. And
Right.
great
That makes
person,
it a
a good
quick
person.
question there.
Yeah, a friend. But I don't have the experience, and I felt far too unhypnotized. I was a little. I
Well,
don't
that's
know
a
enough
question
about it.
too.
Yeah.
That's a question too. Am I hypnotized or not? Because they say that you have such a vividness to your present surroundings while you're being hypnotized that it's really hard to distinguish whether you're actually being hypnotized or not. So that's where I have a struggle with it. But it is hard for me to deny that these visions came through, but it didn't answer any of the questions that I went in there for. So I was kind of back to square one.
Right. Oh, that's too bad. But
Yeah,
it's the way it works sometimes. And I've had
I
people ask me,
suppose.
well, people come to me hoping a certain loved one's going to come through to them too, and they don't always. And now,
No, the ones that have something to say that want to come through are going to come through when they want to come through.
right,
Yeah.
and some of them aren't quite ready yet. And so
Mm,
I will
never
talk,
thought
and
about that.
yeah, and if somebody isn't receiving who they want to receive, I'll ask them and see if I can make connection more directly that way. And
Mm-hmm.
then if I get somebody and I can describe the person to them and we can establish, yes, this is so and so. Um, and then whatever the message is. And it's usually, yeah, I'm around, but I'm healing. I'm busy.
Oh,
I'm
I'm healing and busy.
I'm still learning. I'm because this life on this planet is pretty brutal.
It's just a lesson, and it's just a lesson.
Yeah,
Brutal, you said?
yeah. And I think our souls often go off to the next pretty beaten up
Exhausted.
and
Yeah,
exhausted. And it
I could see
often
that.
takes a while to get our bearings and to heal enough that we just want to do anything. Um, and everybody's relationships can be complicated with the different people. And there's a difference. Just because
Mm.
somebody is a best friend or a close relative here doesn't mean you're part of the same soul group where you'd be traveling. The main part of your souls would be together like a family and reincarnating often together. Um,
Yeah, there's a gentleman named Brian Stalin who believes in those soul families, and he says that there are certain soul families that we do circle in lives
mhm,
that we reincarnate with. And
right.
in one, you could be a mother and a brother or spouses or however, but we do have those soul families that we relive other lives with.
Yeah. That's my experience working um, in the field with people, and sometimes it's a little embarrassing when you have a brother and a sister, and you guys were husband and wife at one point,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
a child, a mother and son or something like that, or father daughter, and um,
Yeah.
it's just kind of fun. Um,
I'm
but
under the impression that my older daughter was once my mother,
very
and
pretty good.
she's not receiving me as a mother very well because she likes to mother me.
Okay.
So, but that's probably her experience in this life, you know what I mean? So,
Has she done a lot? She focuses kind of on taking care of others,
she's um
or thinks
taking
that's
care of
what's
animals.
expect.
She's an animal lover. She's all about taking care of animals, and she's
Okay.
definitely empathic because she feels their pain extremely.
Yeah.
Um, she's a perfectionist, but she doesn't receive me being a mom very well. She still wants to be in charge.
Hmm.
So, but that's her lesson to learn. I'm
Yeah. Well, it's both of your lessons, because you put
oh
yourself in
yeah,
the position to have a child with that kind of a piece to her
right,
nature. So,
right.
hmm
Oh, you're right.
and
And I have to do the best that I can and believe that I'm doing the best that I can and not knock myself out if it doesn't come out the way that I had hoped that it would, which is a struggle because I'm an empath.
right.
It's really a struggle for me every single day.
Hmm.
I have two daughters, and they're both extremely different, and I love them equally the same.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I have
Hmm.
a better relationship with one than I do the other. And it gets hard. It gets really
Yeah.
hard because it wasn't always that way. I was always in a great relationship with both my girls. You know what I mean? I was very close with both of them, but the older she gets, the stronger and harder she is. And well, it is what it is. Like I said, it's
Yeah.
her lesson and mine, and I'm doing the best that I can. So,
Right. And who knows what it is that she's trying to learn through and struggle through herself and keep control over herself or whatever. I don't know. I don't have the psychology degree. I'm very
mm,
careful. Actually, that's something for mediums in general. I always make sure I emphasize with my clients, I am not a doctor. I have no medical training. I have no mental health or mental health counselor training. I'm not a lawyer with that, and I have absolutely no training. I'm not qualified to speak on any of these issues. Um, I will
right.
only tell you when I am talking about something along these lines, it's because of what I'm getting from the beings around you and what they're saying, or simply having maybe been on this planet for 60 some years and a little wisdom I picked up along the way of something that may be helpful. Um,
Well, I got news for you. I
uh,
got news for you. The therapists don't know what to say either. They pretty much tell you, you know, you're doing the best you can. Keep the lines of communication open. You're in a better position than some people are. Get this, that you're in a better position than some people are because some people don't even have a relationship with their kids.
right.
They have nothing and they have no clue why. They don't understand what they did wrong. I'm like, yeah, I get that. Okay.
Yeah.
So if she
Yeah.
wants to come around, she'll come around. If she doesn't, she doesn't. I just need to, continue with my journey and take it from there. And so
Right.
that was my therapist's advice. So they didn't know
Yeah.
really what to say either.
And it could be that, a therapist working for her or something. And again, I'm just putting out in generalities. There's so much of this.
Sure.
And I think it has something to do with the past life with her. I really do. And it's an injury. Does she have dark hair?
Not dark hair, but kind of like my roots.
Okay. Yeah. Um, because I'm seeing this side that, and it goes back a ways, and I think it's a confusion, and it's not understanding, and um, And here I'm doing what I said it's rude to do. I'm giving your daughter a reading that she doesn't even know about.
That's okay.
Well, and I'm not going to totally read her. I'm just saying I think there's
I'm sure she
something.
would appreciate it because she loves this sort of stuff.
Okay.
She may not like
If
what she hears, but she does go for readings. So
Well, if it's appropriate and it works, I think I just see like this darker turmoil thing, and I keep seeing a knife. And it's like there's something from the past, a past life. Could be something from this life as a little kid, even, or as not so little that she hasn't understood or maybe misunderstood. But it's past, and if it was this life, it built more on what was in a past life.
mm,
And I'm not getting a lot more about what that's about, but there's a knife facing up, the tip here and the handle down here. Um, and it's the flat of the blade is what
that's
I'm looking
symbolic
for.
for you. In other words, that knife is symbolic. It kind of gives you an idea of what.
It's the first time I've seen it like that.
Mm.
So I don't know what it is. And then, like I say, this kind of dark, swirly energy.
Hope it doesn't mean she's fallen on her knife because
Oh no.
it
I
no,
mean, it's
because in
past.
the way I see, the way I interpret the whole situation is that um, she is living her life. She is making her decisions in her life, and she's missing out on so much that she doesn't have to miss out on. And it makes me sad. It breaks my heart because I love her
Right.
so much with all of my being, and that's probably why it hurts so much because when they go through things like that, you hurt as a
Oh
parent. You
yeah.
really do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I gave my parents plenty of hurt. Um, but yeah, so there's just something there. That's what I get, and I think it's workable. She has to be willing to do the work, both probably from a past life perspective and also from a good match and a therapist for her to help get
She, I,
into.
I, I wished I've been encouraging her to go to a therapist, saying, but she's past believing in therapy anymore. Although she'll Google and read up on whatever's online, and she almost applies it to her situation with because she thinks that's how it goes, and it's
Right.
just well, you got to do what you got to do, or yeah, I don't know. But
Yeah.
I feel like when she's ready to come around, she'll come around, and the door will always be open.
Hmm.
My love and my heart and her dad's love and his heart will always be here for her. I just
Yeah.
think she's very unhappy with her own life, and she needs to figure that out. So
Yeah.
it's sad.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. I'm sorry all of you are having to go through that. And I don't read the
Thank
future.
you.
I'm not going to tell you how it turns out because I have no idea. Um,
Hmm.
but I know it's hard. But it's one of the things that takes some time and work to do is um, be okay with not being able to fix. I'm talking about me and as a medium, not have all the
Hmm.
answers and not be able to fix everything. Because I grew up
Right.
being the
That's the
a
hardest
caregiver,
part.
heck,
It's the hardest
fixer,
part.
you name it. And
Uh-huh.
um,
Me
I
too.
don't have that. I don't have that role anymore. I took on. I was given more of it than I should have been given as a kid,
Hmm.
and took it on the wrong way. And I don't have to do that anymore. And so I'm
And
not.
that's the point. I think that's the point that you have to get to. You have to get to the point, and that's where I'm at right now. That's so perfect that you said that. You have to get to the point where you said, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I've tried what I can, and I need to do me now. I need
Right.
to like concentrate on me. And
Good.
so when you're ready to come around and you're ready to focus on you and putting this whole thing back together again, then let's go for it. The door will
Excellent.
always be open.
Yeah. Oh,
It's
that's
very
excellent.
hard. It's very
Yes.
hard. And I've come so close to the precipice many times, and I've turned back and got where I started, but now I'm past the point of return. So
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, it was okay. I was I have a sister, but she lives 1,000 miles away and has a family that doesn't let go very much often. And so I was, for all practical purpose, for all the several years of my parents' illnesses, leading up to their passing 9 and 10 years ago, um, I was it. And even before that, I was the one that lived close by. So I was always the one that was
The burden
the,
was always on you.
yeah, the caregiver and
Yeah.
stuff. And so when they both passed, I didn't need to do that for anybody anymore. It's like, okay, I'm done. And I'm glad I could help them in their final years and be with them when they passed and all the rest of it. Um, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm single. I don't have children. Um, my sister has a niece and nephew. That's her motherly realm gets to deal with that. I don't um, have to try to do anything that raise them. They're adults, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
so now I can take care of me. And
And that's a
help.
good thing.
Yeah, and it's not that I'm not compassionate towards people and whatever, and I listen and I help friends when I can, and things like that. But there isn't the same sense of obligation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a case by case, more of a choice, and more of a freedom. And I've
Right.
gotten,
I can see that.
yeah, and very good at saying no when it's not something I can do. So
I think that's an important lesson to learn, to be able to say no.
yes,
Sometimes it's harder for others
hmm
to do that.
I think so.
So,
It's part of the advantage of growing older. I can give you lots of
yes.
disadvantages,
Yes.
but
Getting older definitely has its effects on you for sure because
uh,
I'm 57 and let's be realistic. You don't know how many you get this to this point in time. You don't know how much longer you're going to be around, how much time you have. So you think, well, if I got 20 years, I want those 20 years to be fruitful and happy.
right.
And I'm gonna get rid of all the negativity, and I'm not going to be about the drama because
Yep.
there can be a lot of drama even in the paranormal world. Not going
Oh,
to be about
especially
it.
in the paranormal world. I walk
Oh my
away.
God.
I
I
just
got
go,
a taste of it. It was a smack in the face. And I
oh no.
thought, what hit me? I was never so devastated in my life. I thought, this can't be happening. And it was devastating. It really was very heart-wrenching to have this happen to me.
Oh
And
no.
I said to myself, yeah, I'm like, how could this be happening? Because I'm it's a long story. But anyway, yeah, the paranormal drama. And when I finally got through it, I was like breathing and I thought, okay, now I have to do things to protect myself from this. I can't allow this to happen again because it knocked me off my feet. It really
Right.
did. And I never expected it. And then I talked to other people and they're like, oh my God, you're only experiencing now? There's so much paranormal drama. And then they started sharing their own experiences. And I was just like, oh my God, are you for real? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, oh, no, I can't let that happen to me anymore. So,
No. Good for you. Good for you.
yeah.
And I think one of the things we have to realize in this field is that um, a lot of people are drawn to it out of a need to feel special and unique
Mm-hmm.
and appreciated or valued. A lot of broken people come here and use this as
A
kind of
crutch.
yeah, and they haven't done the other work needed to work on those issues. There are also a lot of outstanding, incredibly wonderful, kind human beings who are brilliant and do outstanding work. Um,
And those are the people that I want to be drawn to. Those are the people
right,
that I want to work with because I'm all about let's do this together and learn together and learn with each other. And
Mhm.
I don't like this, oh, I'm stepping on somebody's toes, or I'm better than you are, or,
Oh no.
I don't, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Like, I am not about that. We're about learning together and teaching each other. And my thing was, I'm a very caring person, and I've tried to include everybody. And if I saw somebody that was alone and in need, I wanted to bring them into the group, to make them feel like they were part of something. And it came to bite me in the ass, and in tenfold. It was just really, really, really bad. So now I need to be very careful of who I deal
Mhm.
with and make sure that I'm protected, because I'm not going to go through that again. It was really very devastating to me.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's awful.
Yeah. Yeah. It
And
was rough.
good for you with that. I'm very selective on who I work with. I'm not part of the team. Um, I I get tired of looking at meters and stuff after a while.
Well, you
Uh,
shouldn't. You don't have the need to do so. So you're very fortunate.
yeah, I like to go wander around and see who wants to talk to me, and I'll video
Yeah.
what I'm doing to make a record of it. And once they're done talking to me, it's like, okay, I can go home now. Um,
It's true, right?
why are you staying until 3 o'clock? It's um, I've seen chairs move before. It's okay. Um, but I lost my train of thought on that. But it's it's just a piece that oh yeah, I'm careful about other mediums I work with. Um,
I
I know a
understand why you
couple.
would. Mm.
I have one really good friend who's actually a very good medium who was quite new at all of this, and he took some of my classes and he did a little bit of work, I think, with somebody else. Um, he's the only one I really know of as being as good as he is that fast. Because usually, like I say, I was doing this for decades before I went professional.
Hmm.
Um, Ankasha Amenti is a very dear friend of mine, and just one of the best mediums I've ever encountered. She did it for decades and studied and developed and learned before she went professional. I mean, there's just, you don't wake up and decide to put a shingle out and say, "Hi, I'm a medium. Come give me money to read." Um,
Right.
and just like with any other profession, you have to do the work. And
And
it's,
learn.
mm-hmm. And a lot of that's getting over our egos and being willing to say things that put us out on a limb.
Mm, I
One of
get
the,
that.
yeah, I remember it's an example I use. Sometimes the most ridiculous sounding thing is actually very accurate. I was doing some remote work for somebody I knew um, in a town that's, I don't know, about a 6, 7 hour drive from where I live. Um, she's in eastern Washington, someplace, kind of desert, Native American reservations around and different things. And I said, okay, well, this sounds like a really bad B movie, but the gray cement brick wall is here in front of the stone wall. The tunnel entrance is here, the dead body's here, and the treasure's here. And she said, well, the place was used as a mob hideout and loot hideout. The gray cement block wall is here, the stone wall is here, the tunnel entrance is here, and there was somebody killed close by, but they haven't looked for the body yet. So we don't know if the body's,
Wow.
but the
So
treasure
you
had
said
been there.
what you said, whatever came to you, and it really checked out.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. If it comes to you, as silly as it sounds, just say it, because you never know what's going to be the connection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a symbolism. For the same person, I was reading a location once, and I described it as this big Victorian, dark, secretive, tower, kind of
Mm-hmm.
big gated house. It's a 50s ranch. But the people inside it had the personality of the very guarded, very gate kind of gated personality Victorian. So the house
Oh,
I
I
was
see.
seeing was a symbol of who
Of
the
their
people were.
personalities.
Yeah.
I see.
And
Interesting.
yeah, so I mean, that's just something that we all have to be aware of as we give the readings. And we change and we learn and we grow over time. Or, I mean, we should
Mm-hmm.
be. Um,
Yeah.
if we aren't, we might want to look and say what's going on. So
Question it.
yeah,
Well, this has been so wonderful. I really enjoyed our conversation, very much so.
I
And
have
I would
to.
love for you to tell our listeners exactly how they can reach you and find you if they want to enroll in any of your classes. Mind you, those classes they can do virtually, correct? If they needed
Yes,
to?
I can do virtual classes. Um, I love to go on the road and give classes and workshops. Um, we need to make sure there's enough and the draw and everything that I can make it pencil out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I hate to put that piece of it in, but I'm not independently
No,
wealthy at this
I'm
point.
glad that you mentioned that because I do have a paranormal team and um, maybe I can pull something together for you.
Because I'd love to bring that aspect. And if not, virtually is great. And we could even sit around in a spot with the haunted spot like this and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I have a website. Now, I can't get into it quite right now. It's very out of date, but paranormalinsights.net is my website. And you can sign up for my free newsletter there. And you can also buy the self-published copy of my book, which is in color. I have a published copy, a publisher did, that's black and white. And that's both of those are on Amazon. And then Para Insights is Facebook. And I think Paranormal Insights is Instagram.
And the
Um,
name of your book is Footsteps of My Forebears.
yes. And then there's a subtitle, and I have to read it to remember exactly. Um, but I'd love to have it. William at Paranormal Insights is my email. If I don't get back to you in a day or two on email, it's because I'm trying to figure out this new system and I get lost. So write back because I try to be very good about that. Um,
Okay.
if you see a phone number for me, don't use it because it's always spam, and so I never bother answering it or checking it anymore. Um,
Okay.
but I've loved this. This has been fantastic. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, you're welcome.